Mitred boxes are easy to make, but as you're gluing end grain, they need some sort of reinforcement. Now this can be done with an internal spline inside the joint, or it's more usually done by cutting splines after the joint's assembled. Now a traditional way of doing this would be to build a 45-degree carriage in which the box sits and rides against the fence over the table saw blade. But as you can see from this box that I made many years ago now, while it's strong and there's no problem with it, the actual splines themselves are quite chunky and not particularly refined. So I'd like to show you a method of adding refinement to your splines. Matching my dovetail guides, my 90-degree guide and my new 45-degree guide, I've introduced this dovetail spline guide. Now the idea of this is that it sits across the corner of a mitred box, and you can see that one side is at 90 degrees and the other side cuts a splayed dovetail across the corner at 1/6 angle. Here's some examples. At its simplest, this is the 1/6 dovetail guide. Here's an example of the 90-degree side of it being used with little pairs up here. Here's a combination of the two of them with the angles being used there and there in opposite directions and the 90-degree in the middle. And then one last one, a double dovetail as well. Now you can, with these, get really quite complicated. Here's an example here and another example there. To be honest, once you've got hold of this, the only limit is your imagination, and that's about it, 6 as far as I'm concerned. Now all these splines were cut with this Lie-Nielsen saw, which has a kerf of 0.6 mil. Now, this is quite convenient because this matches commercial veneer. So it's very easy to get bits of commercial veneer, and then you can actually use the saw to cut the slots and the veneer fits. But there's no limit to this. There's an example here of some thicker dovetail splines which were cut. They were cut using this Japanese saw with a blade of 0.9 mil. And it's very easy to just simply bandsaw your own stock, and once you've got your setting that matches a saw, you can run off quite a few, and then you know you've got plenty of splines to match the kerf of the thickness of the saw. So again, you can vary things in quite a few different ways depending upon the scale of your box. So I'd like to show you how this guide works, and I'll be using this here. I've already marked up the depth and where I'm going to cut, and we're going to be using the dovetail side of this. So let's see how it works. I've set the box in the vise at 45 degrees, and it's as well to just check that because it makes it easier to simultaneously hit the two lines that you've marked out. So take the guide, sit that across the angle, grabs the saw blade, and we'll just work our way along. So there's the first cuts done, and as with the dovetail guide, turn it in the vise to do the second cuts. Again, just make sure that's 45 degrees. Just work our way back the other way. So there are the cuts done. Now with the splines, what I like to do is to fit those dry. So just take up pre-cut lengths here and wiggle that down in, and then just use a pair of scissors to remove the excess and work our way along. Now I like to put these in dry. If you try to put yellow glue in there and then put tight-fitting splines in there, you'll never get them down to the bottom. So the way I do this is to fit them in nice and tightly and then just wick super glue in there, and I'll show you that when I've finished. So this one, just edging it down. And if you've got any which when you try them are coming up a little bit too tight and you're not able to get it down and the grain is beginning to split on the splines, what you can do is just to give them with the hammer, just give them a little whack. And that just compresses them enough to push it down. So wiggle from side to side, making sure that it bottoms out on both sides. Remove the excess. And there's one that definitely needs a little bit of persuasion to go down. And sometimes as well on these is when you rock it from side to side, you find that it rocks to one side, rocks to the other, but you can't get it actually to sit all the way down. And I've got a little trick for that, which I'd like to show you, is that if you take here and you just make a slight cut there and create a slight V shape in the bottom of the spline, then that will make sure that as you insert it, that the two parts that you want to, the two parts that show are both down to the bottom of the slots so that you've got no gaps to fill later. So again, just insert that one. Oops, another one quite tight. And then the last one. So with those all in, we can just simply take some thin super glue and just let that wick in. Don't worry about the mess, just need to make sure that the glue gets into the joint. Just give that a little clean up. And there we go, and that's the splines inserted, and once that's dry we can clean them up. So with the glue dried, it's time to clean them up. And what I like to do is to go across the tops first, just to level them down, and then moving away from the corner, you can just simply clean them up. Doing them in this direction avoids the possibility of them splintering out. The other side. And there we go. The spline's complete, ready to sand up to a finish. So for all you box makers out there, this is a great new tool and I'm very excited about it.